I never thought my own son would steal from me. After 40 years of building houses for other families, I'd saved enough to buy my dream mountain lodge in Colorado. It was supposed to be my sanctuary after Martha died. But when I drove up that winding road last Tuesday, expecting solitude and peace, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Cars filled my driveway. Smoke rose from my chimney. Through the window, I glimpsed my son Bradley, raising a champagne glass, laughing with strangers in my home. The sight of those vehicles in my driveway sent a chill down my spine that had nothing to do with the mountain air. I recognized Bradley's silver Mercedes immediately, but the three other cars were unfamiliar. A white Range Rover with dealer plates, a sleek black Audi, a champagne-colored Lexus that screamed money. My hands trembled as I reversed my old Ford pickup, parking it behind a cluster of pine trees about 200 yards down the road. Something told me not to announce my arrival just yet. Call it intuition, or maybe just the sixth sense you develop after 67 years of hard living. I approached my lodge on foot, keeping to the tree line. The autumn leaves crunched beneath my boots, but the sound of laughter and music from inside covered my approach. My lodge. The place where Martha and I had planned to spend our golden years before cancer took her 3 years ago. The place where I came to feel close to her memory. Through the large picture window I'd installed myself, I could see them clearly. Bradley stood near the fireplace, his arm around Stephanie, his wife of 5 years. But the room was full of people I'd only met once or twice. Stephanie's family. Her mother Eleanor sat in my leather recliner, the one Martha had bought me for my 60th birthday. Her father Richard stood by the bar I'd built with reclaimed barnwood. And there was Marcus, Stephanie's brother, the hotshot lawyer, who'd looked at me like I was something he'd scrape off his shoe at their wedding. But it wasn't just their presence that made my stomach turn. It was what they'd done to my home. The rustic decorations Martha and I had chosen together were gone. In their place hung modern art that looked like something a child might finger paint. The handmade quilts from local artisans had been replaced with stark white furnishings that belonged in a city penthouse, not a mountain lodge. I circled around to the side of the house, my knees protesting the crouch as I peered through the kitchen window. The cast-iron cookware I'd collected over decades was nowhere to be seen. Instead, gleaming stainless steel appliances I didn't recognize filled the space. This wasn't just a visit. They'd moved in. My hands shook with rage, but I forced myself to remain calm. Think, Cleon. Don't react. Observe. It's what made me successful in business, and it's what I needed now. Moving carefully, I made my way to the back deck. The sliding door was cracked open, and voices drifted out. I pressed myself against the wall and listened. "You were right about the old man," Marcus was saying. "He really hasn't been here in months. This place was just sitting empty, waiting for someone with vision to make it profitable." "Dad's getting old and forgetful," Bradley said, and hearing my own son speak about me that way felt like a knife between my ribs. He probably doesn't even remember he owns this place. By the time he realizes what's happening, we'll have established residency rights. "Squatters' rights," Marcus corrected with a laugh that made my skin crawl. "Though technically, it's not squatting when you have permission from the owner's son. Power of attorney is a beautiful thing." My blood ran cold. Power of attorney, I'd never signed any such document. Eleanor's voice cut through the air like a rusty blade. "Your father was always too trusting. Blue-collar types usually are. They don't understand how the real world works. No offense, Bradley dear, but your mother wasn't much better. That simple woman held you back for years." The disrespect toward Martha almost made me burst through the door right then. My wife had been a school teacher who touched hundreds of lives. She was worth 10 of Eleanor on her worst day. But I held my position, my military training from 50 years ago, keeping me disciplined. Now, mother." Stephanie's voice chimed in sweet as poisoned honey. "We shouldn't speak ill of the dead. Besides, once the rental income starts flowing properly, we'll all be too busy counting money to care about the past." Rental income. I crept around to my shed, keeping low. The door was unlocked, and inside, I found my answer. Boxes upon boxes of my personal belongings were stacked haphazardly. Photo albums, Martha's jewelry box, my father's tools. Everything that made this place our home had been carelessly shoved aside like garbage. But on a workbench, I found something worse. Printouts from vacation rental websites. My lodge was listed on 3 different sites, advertised as Stephanie's Mountain Retreat, with professional photos and a price tag that made my eyes water. $300 a night. They'd been renting out my home. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the listing. The reviews went back 6 months. 6 months they'd been living in my home pretending it was theirs. The most recent review complained about the owner's elderly father showing up and causing a scene. That must have been why Bradley had visited me 2 months ago, insisting I looked tired and should take a long vacation. Rage bubbled in my chest, but I forced it down. I needed more information. Moving back to the house, I found an open window to the office. My office, though, I barely recognized it. The walls that once held photos of job sites and pictures of Martha now displayed Stephanie's law degree and photos of people I didn't know. Richard's voice boomed from inside the room. The October revenue exceeded projections by 30%. At this rate, we'll have enough to justify taking out a larger loan against the property by Christmas. The bank already pre-approved us for $500,000, Stephanie replied. They just need to see 6 months of steady rental income and the deed transfer to finalize. Deed transfer. They weren't just stealing my home. They were leveraging it for money. My legs nearly gave out as the full scope of their plan became clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a family overstepping boundaries. This was calculated theft. I heard footsteps approaching and quickly moved away from the window. Hidden in the shadows of the trees, I watched Marcus step out onto the deck with a cigar. My cigar from the humidor Martha had given me. He puffed on it like he owned the place, and I suppose in his mind, he already did. Back at my truck, I sat in stunned silence, trying to process what I'd witnessed. My own son had conspired with his wife's family to steal my property. They'd been living here for 6 months, running a business from my home, planning to mortgage it for their own gain. And they'd done it all while painting me as a senile old man who couldn't remember his own property. I started the engine and drove away slowly, my mind racing. They thought I was weak. They thought I was stupid. They thought they'd won. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The 20-minute drive back to my lodge felt like an eternity. I'd spent the time calling my friend Ray Hutchinson, a retired detective who'd worked with me on security for some construction sites back in the day. His advice was simple. Don't go in hot. Get evidence first. But something in me couldn't wait. I needed to face them. I pulled into my own driveway, like I owned the place, which of course I did. The conversation inside stopped the moment my truck engine cut off. Through the window, I saw Bradley's face drain of color. Stephanie grabbed his arm, whispering urgently. Marcus set down his wine glass with deliberate calm. The front door opened before I could reach it. Bradley stood in the doorway, trying to block my view inside. Dad, what are you doing here? Funny question to ask a man standing at his own front door. I said, keeping my voice steady. Step aside, son. Now, Dad, let's talk about this. You're confused again. Remember you said we could use the place while you were traveling. I haven't traveled anywhere, Bradley. And I never gave you permission to move in. Step aside. Stephanie appeared at Bradley's shoulder, her smile as false as a $3 bill. Cleon. What a surprise. Bradley told us you were spending the winter in Florida. Didn't you get confused about the dates again? I pushed past them into my home. The full impact of the changes hit me like a physical blow. Every trace of Martha had been erased. The interior looked like something from a magazine, cold and impersonal. Eleanor rose from my chair with theatrical concern. Oh dear, Bradley, your father looks distressed. Should we call someone? Perhaps that nice doctor. You mentioned the one who specializes in memory issues. What's a bottom feeder like you doing in my place? Bradley's words came out sharp and ugly, dropping all pretense. The mask had slipped, revealing the stranger my son had become. I stood perfectly still, letting his words hang in the air. Marcus stepped forward, every inch the lawyer. "Mr. Morrison, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Bradley has power of attorney over your affairs. You signed the papers last Christmas, remember? During your episode." "What episode would that be?" I asked quietly. "The one where you forgot Martha had passed," Stephanie said with fake sympathy. "You were so confused, calling out for her thinking she was in the next room. That's when you realized you needed help managing your affairs." The cruelty of using Martha's memory as a weapon took my breath away. I felt my hands clench into fists, but I forced them to relax. "Not yet. Not here. I want you all out of my house, now." Richard finally spoke up, his voice dripping with condescension. "Cleon, be reasonable. The kids have established a legitimate business here. You can't just throw them out on a whim. Marcus, show him the paperwork." Marcus produced a folder, with the efficiency of a card sharp, dealing from the bottom of the deck. "Here's the power of attorney dated last December. Here's the rental agreement you signed giving Bradley and Stephanie full use of the property. And here's the business license for Mountain Retreat LLC, which you authorized." I looked at the documents. My signature was on each one, but I'd never seen any of them before. The forgery was decent, but I knew my own handwriting. The pressure was wrong, the angle slightly off. Years of signing contracts had taught me what to look for. "These are fake," I said simply. "Dad, please." Bradley stepped forward, his tone shifting to concern. "You're having another episode. Let us help you. Stephanie's already called Dr. Brennan. He specializes in dementia cases." "I don't have dementia, Bradley. What I have is a son who's stealing from me." Eleanor gasped dramatically. "How dare you accuse your own family after everything we've done for you? We've maintained this property, improved it, turned it from a dusty old cabin into something valuable. You've turned it into a rental property without my permission. You're collecting money that belongs to me. That's theft." "Theft?" Marcus laughed. "You signed the documents. If you can't remember doing it, that's not our problem. That's a medical issue. And frankly, if you keep making these wild accusations, we might need to consider more serious interventions. For your own safety, of course." The threat was clear. They'd try to have me declared incompetent. I looked at each of them in turn. Eleanor with her pinched face and designer clothes. Richard soft and pampered, already on his third drink. Marcus sharp as a weasel and twice as trustworthy. Stephanie beautiful and cold as a marble statue. And Bradley, my son. The boy I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd worked overtime to put through college. He couldn't meet my eyes. "I see," I said finally. "Well then, I guess I'll need to speak with my own lawyer." "Good luck with that," Stephanie smirked. "Howard Fletcher retired last year. Didn't Bradley tell you Marcus has been handling all your legal matters since then? It's all documented." Another lie. Howard had sent me a Christmas card 2 weeks ago from his office, but I didn't correct them. Let them think they held all the cards. "I need to use the bathroom," I said. "Down the hall, second door on the right," Eleanor said automatically, then caught herself. The bathroom had always been the first door on the right. They'd renovated that too. I walked slowly, noting every change. Family photos gone. Martha's collection of mountain wildlife prints replaced with abstract nonsense. Even the doorknobs had been changed from the rustic bronze I'd installed to modern chrome. In the bathroom, I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Ray. "You were right. It's worse than I thought. They've forged documents. They're threatening to have me declared incompetent." His response was immediate. "Get out of there. Document everything. I know someone who can help." When I emerged, they'd formed a semicircle in the living room like a tribunal. Marcus held his phone. "I've taken the liberty of calling Dr. Brennan," he announced. "He can see you tomorrow morning. Just a casual chat, nothing formal. But if you continue with these delusions about theft and forgery, we'll have to take more serious steps." "For your own good," Eleanor added with a smile that reminded me of a barracuda. I nodded slowly. I understand. You've made yourselves very clear. Where are you staying tonight, Dad? Bradley asked, a flicker of something that might have been guilt crossing his face. That's my business, I replied. But I'll tell you this. I built this house with these two hands. I know every board, every nail, every secret it holds. And I didn't work 40 years in construction to let any one family or not steal what belongs to me. No one's stealing anything, Stephanie said coldly. We're managing your asset because you're no longer capable. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. I headed for the door, then turned back. Bradley, your mother would be ashamed of you. He flinched as if I'd slapped him. Good. Maybe somewhere inside my real son still existed. Outside, I sat in my truck for a moment, hands shaking with suppressed rage. They'd stolen my home, forged my signature, and were planning to have me declared incompetent if I fought back. They thought they'd covered every angle. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. I wasn't some doddering old fool who'd roll over and accept their abuse. I was Cleon Morrison, and I'd spent a lifetime learning how to build things up, and when necessary, tear them down. As I drove away from my stolen home, I began to plan. They wanted to play dirty fine, but they'd forgotten one thing. I'd been playing this game a lot longer than they had. The Shady Pines Motel wasn't much to look at, but it was clean and 20 miles from the lodge. More importantly, the owner, Betty Chen, didn't ask questions when I paid cash for a week up front. I needed time to think and plan without anyone tracking my credit cards. That first night, I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the emotions hit. Betrayal burned in my chest like acid. Bradley, my only son. The boy I'd carried on my shoulders who'd helped me pour the foundation for the lodge. How had it come to this? But wallowing wouldn't solve anything. Martha always said I was at my best when I had a problem to solve. You're like a dog with a bone, Cleon, she'd laugh. You never let go until you crack it. Time to prove her right. The next morning, Ray Hutchinson met me at a diner on the outskirts of town. He looked good for 72, still sharp-eyed and straight-backed. We'd been through enough together that he didn't waste time on pleasantries. Tell me everything, he said over coffee. I laid it all out. The forged documents, the rental scheme, the threats to have me declared incompetent. Ray listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes on a napkin. They've been planning this for a while, he said when I finished. 6 months of rental history, forged papers, even a fake doctor lined up. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment grab. Someone's orchestrating this. Marcus, I said. The lawyer. He's too smooth, too prepared. Maybe. But in my experience, the spouse is usually the one pulling strings in family theft. Your daughter-in-law strike you as the type? I thought about Stephanie's cold smile, the way she'd mentioned Martha. Yeah. Yes, she does. All right. First things first. You need your own lawyer, and not just any lawyer. You need someone who specializes in elder abuse and fraud. Second, we need a private investigator. I know you want to handle this yourself, but you need professional documentation. Lucky for you, I know just the person. An hour later, we were sitting in the office of Sarah Coleman, a private investigator who looked like she could be someone's favorite aunt, until you noticed her eyes. They were cop eyes, missing nothing. Ray filled me in on the basics, she said, sliding a contract across the desk. Elder financial abuse is my specialty. Used to see it all the time when I was on the force. Family members are the worst perpetrators because they think blood gives them the right. Can you help? I asked. I can do more than help. I can bury them. But I need you to understand something. This is going to get ugly. When family members get caught stealing, they don't go down easy. They'll attack your reputation, your mental state, anything to discredit you. You ready for that? They already started, I said. I'm ready. Sarah nodded. Good. First thing, we need to document their presence at the property. I'll set up surveillance. Second, we need to trace the money. rental income, bank accounts, the works. Third, we look into their backgrounds. In my experience, people who steal from family have usually done it before. What do you need from me? Everything. Bank statements, the real deed to the property, any communications with your son over the past year. And I need you to start recording every interaction with them. Colorado's a one-party consent state, so it's legal. She handed me a small device that looked like a pen. This records 8 hours of audio. Always have it on you. Over the next few days, I dove into my financial records with growing alarm. There were withdrawals I didn't recognize, checks cashed that I never wrote. They'd been bleeding me slowly for months before making their big move. My construction company pensioned the account where Martha's life insurance payout sat untouched. Even the small investment account we'd started for future grandchildren all showed suspicious activity. I met with James Whitmore, an old friend who practiced law. Unlike Howard Fletcher, who handled my regular affairs, James specialized in criminal law. His assessment was blunt. The forgeries are good, but not perfect. The notary whose stamp appears on these documents. She died 2 years ago. They got sloppy. That's fraud, plain and simple. The mortgage they're trying to take out. That's federal fraud. We're talking serious prison time. What about Bradley? I asked, though it hurt to say it. Depends on his level of involvement. If he just went along with it, maybe probation. If he was actively involved in the forgery, James shrugged. 3 to 5 years minimum. The thought of my son in prison made me sick. But what choice did I have? Let them steal everything Martha and I had built. Pretend I was senile while they robbed me blind. That evening, Bradley called. I almost didn't answer, but I remembered Sarah's advice about recording everything. I activated the pen recorder. Dad, it's me. Listen, about yesterday. Things got out of hand. Why don't you come by tomorrow? We can talk this through like family. Are Stephanie and her family going to be there? Well, yeah. They live here now. But that's what we need to discuss. Maybe we can work out some kind of arrangement. You could have the guest house out back. We'd take care of you. The guest house. The studio I'd built for Martha's art. They were offering me a corner of my own property, like throwing scraps to a dog. I'll think about it, I said. Dad, you know I love you, right? This is all just a big misunderstanding. Stephanie's family, they mean well. They just have a different way of doing things. Different, like forging my signature. Different, like stealing my rental income. Dad, you're confused again. You signed those papers. I was there, remember Christmas dinner at our house? You had too much wine and said you wanted us to take care of things. The lie came so easily to him. When had my son become this person? Or had he always been capable of this, and I just never saw it? Good night, Bradley, I said and hung up. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Within 3 days, Sarah had surveillance footage of the comings and goings at the lodge. Photos of Marcus meeting with various people, including someone she identified as a known document forger. Bank records showing money flowing from the rental accounts into a web of LLCs, all leading back to Stephanie and Marcus. But the real breakthrough came when Sarah dug into Stephanie's past. Your daughter-in-law is quite the operator, she told me over coffee at the diner. This is her 3rd marriage. The first 2 ended with similar disputes over property. The first husband claimed she stole his boat and sold it. The second said she emptied their joint accounts and disappeared. Both cases were dropped when she agreed to settlements. Bradley doesn't know. Doubt it. She's good at reinventing herself. Different last names, moved states. But the pattern's clear. She targets men with assets, preferably ones with family property. What about Marcus? Clean record legally, but he's been reprimanded by the Bar Association twice for ethics violations. Nothing that cost him his license, but enough to show a pattern. And here's something interesting. She slid a photo across the table. Marcus and Stephanie at a restaurant holding hands. When was this taken? Last week. And this one. Another photo. The 2 of them entering a hotel. 3 days ago. Seems your son's wife and her brother have an unusual relationship. The pieces clicked into place. Stephanie wasn't just stealing from me. She was playing Bradley too, using him to get access to family assets while carrying on with Marcus. My son wasn't just a thief. He was a fool. My nephew Todd, a forensic accountant, agreed to look at the financial records pro bono. Family, helping family the way it should be. His findings were damning. They've been skimming from multiple sources, he reported. Not just the rental income. They've been using your personal information to open credit cards, take out loans. There's over $200,000 in debt in your name that you never authorized. Can you prove it? With what Sarah's found, absolutely. This is a RICO case if I ever saw one. Racketeering, conspiracy, fraud. The FBI is going to be very interested. That night alone in my motel room, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not for the money or even the house. For my son. For the family I thought I had. For Martha, who'd loved Bradley like her own blood and would be heartbroken to see what he'd become. But when the tears dried, what remained was resolve. They'd made their choice. Now I'd make mine. The wolf was awake, and it was time to hunt. 2 weeks into my investigation, I'd established a routine that would have made any detective proud. Morning surveillance reports from Sarah, afternoon meetings with lawyers and accountants, evenings documenting evidence. I'd turned my motel room into a war room with timelines taped to the walls and boxes of documents organized by date. The pretense began when Bradley visited me at the motel. Sarah had warned me they'd likely check on me, worried about what I might be planning. I'd prepared carefully, scattering pill bottles filled with vitamins on the nightstand, leaving a notebook with meaningless scribbles visible on the bed. When I opened the door, I made sure to look confused for just a moment. Bradley, what are you? Oh yes, come in, son. His eyes immediately went to the pills. Dad, are you taking all of these? The doctor said. Well, I think he said. I let my voice trail off, shuffling back to sit heavily on the bed. Hard to keep track sometimes. Bradley's face showed a mixture of guilt and relief. Guilt that his father might actually be declining. Relief that it made his theft easier to justify. Dad, we're worried about you, living in this motel all alone. Why don't you come stay with us? At the house, Martha's house. Dad, Martha's gone. Remember, she passed 3 years ago. I let my face crumple in confusion. 3 years? No, that's not. I just saw her last week. She was working in her studio. Bradley actually reached for my hand. For a moment, I saw my little boy in his eyes, scared and uncertain. Then Stephanie's training kicked in, and he pulled out his phone. I should call Dr. Brennan. He said you might have episodes like this. No doctors, I said firmly, then softened my voice. Just let me rest. I'm tired, Bradley. He left after extracting a promise that I'd think about moving to the guest house. As soon as his car pulled away, I called Sarah. Performance of a lifetime, I told her. Good, because I've got news. Remember those angry reviews on the rental site? I tracked down 3 families who got scammed. They paid for week-long stays, showed up to find other renters already there. Stephanie's been double and triple booking, keeping all the deposits. That's wire fraud if the payments crossed state lines. James had told me when I relayed the information. Each instance is a separate federal charge. The evidence mounted daily. Sarah's surveillance revealed Marcus was practically living at the lodge, now coming and going at all hours. She'd captured images of him and Stephanie in increasingly intimate situations. Meanwhile, Eleanor had been busy selling items from the lodge on online auction sites. My tools, Martha's antique furniture, even the copper weather vane I'd made by hand. She's got a storage unit across town, Sarah reported. Filled with stuff from your house. She's probably planning to sell it all once they think you're fully out of the picture. But the real gold mine came from an unexpected source. Richard, Stephanie's father, had reached out to a financial advisor about investing his share of the rental profits. That advisor happened to be married to Sarah's former partner on the force. Through careful cultivation, we learned Richard had been told he'd receive 25% of all proceeds from the eventual sale of the lodge. He's more victim than perpetrator, Sarah assessed. His wife and kids are bleeding him dry too. Eleanor's got a gambling problem. Been hitting the casinos hard, telling Richard she's at book club. The IRS tip had come from a family who'd been scammed out of their deposit. They'd filed complaints with every agency they could think of. An investigator had already opened a file on Stephanie's Mountain Retreat LLC. Tax evasion charges would be the cherry on top of the fraud sundae. Todd's forensic accounting revealed the full scope of the financial manipulation. They've been washing money through 3 different LLCs, he explained, showing me a diagram that looked like a spider web. Rental income goes into one, gets transferred to another as consulting fees, then paid out to personal accounts. Classic money laundering. What about the mortgage? That's where they got really stupid. The bank they approached, First National of Denver. You built their flagship branch back in '97. The loan officer recognized your name, knew something was off. He's been slow-walking their application, waiting to see if you'd surface. I felt a spark of hope. Not everyone had forgotten who Cleon Morrison was. By the end of the second week, federal investigators were quietly building their case. James had reached out to contacts in the FBI's white-collar crime division. This is exactly the kind of case they love, he told me. Clear evidence, multiple defendants, interstate commerce. They're just waiting for the right moment to move. But I wasn't content to just let the law handle everything. This was personal. I wanted them to know exactly who they'd tried to destroy. Sarah's background check on Stephanie had revealed her first husband lived in Nevada. A phone call confirmed what we'd suspected. She cleaned me out, Robert Henley told me. Took everything that wasn't nailed down. Even stole my dog. By the time I figured out what was happening, she'd vanished. Cost me 3 years and $50,000 in legal fees to finally get the divorce. Would you be willing to testify to that? Mister, I'd drive to Colorado tomorrow if it meant seeing that woman get what she deserves. The loan sharks Bradley owed money to were harder to track down, but Sarah had connections from her police days. Your son's in deep, she warned. $150,000 to some very unpleasant people. They've been patient because he promised a big payoff once the property sold. Another piece of the puzzle. Bradley wasn't just greedy, he was desperate. Stephanie had probably promised to help with his debts if he gave her access to the family assets. My son had sold his birthright for a woman who was cheating on him with her brother. The security footage from my lodge's hidden cameras proved to be the smoking gun. I'd installed them years ago after a break-in at a neighboring property. Small motion-activated cameras hidden in the exterior light fixtures. They'd captured everything, the moving trucks arriving in the night, the document signing parties where my signature was forged, even Marcus and Stephanie's intimate encounters on my back deck. This is beautiful, James said, reviewing the footage. They can't claim you gave permission when we have video of them literally breaking in. But the best discovery came from Betty at the motel. She'd overheard me on the phone and approached me one evening. That family staying at your lodge. They caused trouble here last month. Tried to rent the whole motel for some party, wrote a bad check. When I called to collect, that lawyer threatened to sue me for harassment. I've got the bounce check if you need it. More fraud, more evidence. The pile grew daily. 3 weeks in, I had enough to bury them. But James counseled patience. Let them dig deeper. The mortgage fraud is the big one. If they actually file those papers, it's federal prison, no question. So I waited. Played the confused old man when Bradley called. Let them think they'd won. All while, the wolf gathered his pack, preparing for the hunt. Sarah summed it up best over coffee one morning. They think you're prey. They have no idea they're about to become the meal. The call came on a Thursday morning. Bradley's voice was cheerful, almost manic. Dad, great news. Stephanie found some paperwork that could solve everything. Can you come by the lodge this afternoon? Just family, I promise. I activated the recorder pen. What kind of paperwork? Something about Mom's will. There might be provisions we overlooked. 2 o'clock. Martha's will. They were getting desperate if they were invoking her memory again. I'll be there. I arrived at 1:45, parking my truck prominently in the driveway. I'd chosen my appearance, carefully rumpled clothes, uncombed hair, a slight stoop to my walk. In my jacket pocket, I carried a folder marked New Will in large letters visible when I moved. The welcoming committee was in full force. Eleanor had arranged herself on the sofa like a queen holding court. Richard stood by the fireplace, a drink already in hand, despite the early hour. Marcus paced near the window, his lawyer instincts clearly on edge. Bradley met me at the door, his smile too wide, too eager. "Dad, you look—" He paused, taking in my disheveled appearance. "Are you feeling all right?" "Good days and bad days." I mumbled, letting my eyes drift unfocused for a moment. "Is Martha here?" Stephanie appeared at Bradley's elbow, her face a mask of false concern. "No, Cleon. Martha's not here. Remember, we talked about this." I blinked slowly, then nodded. Right. She's at the store." They exchanged glances. Perfect. Let them think I was declining rapidly. We gathered in the living room, the family arranged strategically around me. I clutched my folder, making sure they all noticed it. "Now then," Marcus began in his courtroom voice, "we've discovered some irregularities in Martha's will. Provisions that suggest she intended for Bradley to have immediate access to the family properties." "Martha's will." I frowned. "But I was just updating that last week. Or was it yesterday?" Eleanor leaned forward. "Cleon, dear, what's in that folder?" I pulled it closer. "Private. My lawyer said not to show anyone." "Dad." Bradley moved to sit beside me. "We're family. You can trust us. Is it about your will?" I hesitated, then slowly opened the folder, letting them glimpse official-looking documents. Mr. Whitmore said I should update things. Said I should make sure the family was taken care of. Marcus practically lunged forward. "Whitmore, I thought he was your lawyer." "Dad, I mean Cleon. I've been handling your legal matters." "Have you?" I looked confused. "But Mr. Whitmore just had me sign something. Said it was important. About the properties." The room went electric with greed. Stephanie's eyes glittered. Eleanor sat straighter. Even Richard put down his drink. "What did you sign, Dad?" Bradley's voice was carefully controlled. I pulled out a document, holding it loosely, so they could see it was indeed a will. He said Bradley should have everything. The lodge, the accounts, everything. Said it was time. "Can I see that?" Marcus reached for the papers. I pulled them back. "Mr. Whitmore said to wait. Said there were other papers to sign first. At the bank. Tomorrow morning." "The bank?" Stephanie's voice was sharp. "What papers at the bank?" "Don't remember exactly. Something about transfers. Making things easier. He said if I sign them, Bradley won't have to wait for when I'm gone." The greed in the room was palpable. They thought I was about to hand them everything legally, no forgery required. Marcus excused himself, probably to research whether a confused elder signing over property was legally binding. Stephanie whispered urgently to Bradley. "Dad," Bradley said finally, "maybe I should come with you to the bank, to help." "Would you?" I smiled vaguely. "That would be nice. Martha always said you were helpful." Eleanor, emboldened by the prospect of easy money, made a critical error. "Cleon, have you been taking your medication? You seem very confused today." "Medication." I fumbled in my pocket, pulling out a pill bottle that rattled loudly. "These, or the other ones? There are so many now." "Let me see." She snatched the bottle, reading the label. Her face showed confusion. These were clearly vitamins, not any medication she recognized. But before she could say anything, Richard's phone rang. His face went white as he listened. "What do you mean, frozen all of them? That's impossible." "What's wrong?" Eleanor demanded. "The accounts. The business accounts. They're all frozen. The bank says there's a federal hold. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Marcus strode back in his phone in hand. We have a problem. Just got an alert that the IRS has opened an investigation into the rental business. That's impossible, Stephanie snapped. We filed everything properly. Did we? Richard turned on his daughter. You said Marcus handled all that. I did, Marcus protested. Every return, every form. Then why are federal agents asking questions? Richard's voice rose. Why are our accounts frozen? I sat quietly still, clutching my folder, watching them turn on each other. Bradley looked between his wife and her family, confusion dawning. What investigation? What's going on? Nothing, Stephanie said quickly. Just a misunderstanding. Right, Marcus? But Marcus was scrolling through his phone, his face growing paler. There's more. The State Bar just sent a notice. They're investigating allegations of document fraud. What? Eleanor shrieked. How is that possible? Someone must have reported. Marcus's eyes snapped to me. You did this. I blinked at him owlishly. Did what? I've just been in my motel trying to remember things. Bradley's phone rang. He answered it, and I watched the blood drain from his face. Yes, this is Bradley Morrison. What? No, that's impossible. I'll be right there. He hung up, hands shaking. That was the bank. They say someone's been trying to take out a mortgage on the lodge using forged documents. They've called the police. But that was... Stephanie started, then caught herself. That was what... Bradley turned on her. What did you do? Nothing. Your father must have... He's confused. He probably signed something without understanding. The bank manager said the application was filed last week, Bradley said slowly. With my signature. And Dad's. But I never signed anything. The room erupted. Richard accused Marcus of forging documents. Marcus blamed Stephanie for pushing too hard. Eleanor screamed about her frozen accounts. And through it all, I sat quietly, a confused old man caught in the chaos. Bradley's phone rang again. This time his face went from pale to green. They want their money. All of it. By tomorrow. Who wants money? Richard demanded. Nobody. It's nothing. But Bradley's hands were shaking worse now. It's those people you borrowed from, isn't it? Stephanie's mask finally slipped completely. Your gambling debts. You said you had it handled. I do, once we sell the lodge. Sell the lodge. I spoke up, letting confusion color my voice. But that's Martha's and mine. Why would you sell it? They all froze, remembering I was there. The looks they exchanged were those of rats realizing the trap had already sprung. Dad, Bradley started. But I was already standing, my confusion falling away like a discarded coat. Actually, I think I've heard enough. The transformation was complete. The stooped, confused old man was gone. In his place stood Cleon Morrison, builder, businessman, and wolf, who just finished playing with his prey. The bank papers I'm signing tomorrow. They're fraud charges. Against all of you. The IRS investigation. That's real. The frozen accounts. That's just the beginning. I pulled out my phone, hit a number. Sarah, yes, they're all here. Send them in. Through the windows, we could see vehicles pulling up. Federal agents, state police. Even a news van tipped off by Sarah for maximum humiliation. Dad, Bradley whispered. What did you do? What did I do? I looked at my son, letting him see the full weight of my disappointment. I defended what was mine. The question is, what did you do? The doorbell rang. It was time for the real show to begin. FBI Special Agent Carla Winters looked like someone's favorite kindergarten teacher until she opened her mouth. Good afternoon. I'm going to need everyone to remain where they are. We have warrants. The federal agents filed in with practiced efficiency, followed by state police, and what looked like IRS investigators. Eleanor started to stand, but an officer motioned her back down. The living room that had hosted their conspiracy now became their holding cell. This is harassment. Marcus blustered, his lawyer instincts kicking in. You can't just barge in here. We have rights. You absolutely do. Agent Winters agreed pleasantly. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. She continued the Miranda warning as her team began documenting the scene. I stood by the fireplace, no longer the confused old man. My transformation was complete, and the looks on their faces would have been comical if the situation weren't so tragic. Dad. Bradley's voice cracked like a teenager's. What is this? This, I said, pulling the real documents from my folder, is justice. 3 weeks of investigation, surveillance footage, financial records, testimonies from people you've scammed. Did you really think I'd built a successful business for 40 years by being stupid? Stephanie found her voice. You were acting. This whole time you were acting. The confused old man routine. I nodded. Amazing what people will say when they think you're harmless. Like discussing their affair. I looked pointedly between her and Marcus. Or their plans to have me declared incompetent. Or the mortgage fraud. What affair? Bradley looked between his wife and brother-in-law. What's he talking about? Sarah Coleman entered carrying a tablet. Mr. Morrison, I have those files you requested. She connected the tablet to my television, a fancy thing they'd installed. Should I start with the financial evidence or the surveillance footage? Let's start with the surveillance, I said. Bradley deserves to know exactly who he married. The first image appeared on screen, Marcus and Stephanie, at a restaurant holding hands across the table. The timestamp showed last Tuesday. The next showed them entering a hotel together. Then, another kissing in the parking lot behind the lodge. No, Bradley breathed. Steph, tell me this is fake. Stephanie's face had gone rigid. Bradley, it's not what it looks like. Really? Sarah clicked to the next video. Security footage from the lodge's deck, the cameras I'd installed years ago. The audio was crystal clear, as Stephanie told Marcus, once we get the property transferred, we can dump the idiot. I'm tired of pretending to love someone so pathetic. Bradley made a sound like a wounded animal. Richard lurched to his feet, staring at Marcus with murder in his eyes. You're sleeping with your sister. She's not my sister, Marcus said quietly. Everyone turned to stare. Stephanie's not Eleanor's daughter. She's Eleanor's niece. We've been running this con for years. Different cities, different marks. The room exploded. Richard launched himself at Marcus only to be restrained by officers. Eleanor screamed denials. Bradley sank into a chair, his world collapsing around him. Should I continue? Sarah asked me. Oh, please do. Show them the financial records. The screen filled with bank statements, transfer records, credit card applications. Todd had prepared a clear presentation showing how the money flowed from my accounts through their shell companies. $200,000 in fraudulent charges. I narrated. Rental income stolen. Credit cards opened in my name. And this? I pointed to a specific document. A mortgage application for $500,000 against my property. Forged signatures. Federal crime. 10 to 20 years. I want a lawyer, Marcus said. You are a lawyer, Agent Winters observed. Fat lot of good it's doing you. Marcus Shelton, you're under arrest for wire fraud conspiracy and racketeering. Stephanie Shelton, a.k.a. Stephanie Morrison, a.k.a. 3 other aliases, you're under arrest for the same, plus bigamy. Bigamy. Bradley's voice was hollow. I pulled out another document. Her first marriage was never legally dissolved. Your marriage is invalid, son. She was still married to Robert Henley when she married you. Robert himself walked in at that moment, Sarah having arranged his presence for maximum impact. Hello, Stephanie. Miss me? Stephanie's composure finally shattered completely. She tried to run, but an officer caught her easily. Eleanor wasn't far behind, shrieking about her rights and demanding to call her own lawyer, apparently forgetting Marcus was supposed to be that lawyer. The rental scam alone involves victims across 6 states, Agent Winters explained as her team worked. The IRS has documented over $300,000 in unreported income. This is one of the most comprehensive elder fraud cases we've seen. Richard stood in the middle of the chaos, looking lost. "I didn't know," he said to me. "I swear, Cleon, I thought it was legitimate. Eleanor told me you'd agreed to everything." I studied him. Sarah's investigation had suggested he was more dupe than villain. "What did she tell you about the money in your accounts?" "What money?" "The 70,000 she stole from your business and lost at casinos." Richard's face went through several expressions before settling on rage. "Eleanor, what did you do?" But Eleanor was already being led away in handcuffs, still protesting her innocence, despite the mountain of evidence. That left Bradley sitting alone, staring at nothing. I approached my son slowly, part of me still hoping to find the boy I'd raised. "Dad," he whispered. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She said you were losing it. Said we were helping you. Said if we didn't take control, the government would take everything when you died. And you believed her. She was my wife. I thought she loved me. I thought—" He broke down completely. "What's going to happen to me?" Agent Winters answered, "That depends on your level of involvement. The forensic evidence suggests you were more accomplice than mastermind. If you cooperate, fully testify about what you know, you might avoid prison." "Might?" "You still committed fraud," she said. "Signed false documents. Participated in elder abuse. The prosecutor will take cooperation into account, but you're looking at probation at minimum, possibly a few years inside." Bradley looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, I know I don't deserve it, but please, help me. I'll do anything. I'll testify. I'll make it right. I don't want to go to prison." I'd imagined this moment many times over the past weeks. The satisfaction of seeing him arrested. The vindication of being proven right. But looking at my broken son, all I felt was tired. "You'll testify?" I asked. "Tell them everything, help convict the woman you claim to love." "She doesn't love me," Bradley said bitterly. "She never did. I was just a mark. Just a way to get to you." "And what about us? Did you ever love me? Or was I just a wallet to you too?" Bradley flinched. "I loved you. I still do. I got lost. The debts, the pressure, Stephanie constantly in my ear about how you were wasting money we needed. I'm weak, Dad. I've always been weak. Mom knew it. She tried to protect me, but after she died—" "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't you dare use Martha's death as an excuse. She raised you better than this." "I know," he whispered. "God, I know. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." The house emptied slowly as the conspirators were taken away. Evidence was tagged and bagged. The rental scheme documentation alone filled several boxes. Through the window, I could see news crews setting up the scandal already breaking. Sarah approached me as the last of the vehicles pulled away. "You did good, Cleon. I know that wasn't easy watching your son get arrested. He made his choices," I said, though my heart was heavy. "What happens now?" Now you get your life back. The property will be returned to your full control. The fraudulent debts will be wiped clean. Insurance should cover most of the stolen funds. And if Bradley truly cooperates, he might get through this with minimal jail time." I looked around the room that had been transformed from my mountain sanctuary into a cold showpiece. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of making it mine again, bringing back Martha's warmth, reclaiming what had been stolen. But tonight I just felt old and alone. The wolf had won the hunt, but victory tasted like ashes. "Come on," Sarah said gently. "Let me buy you dinner. You've earned it." As we left, I took one last look at the lodge. It would be mine again, but it would never be the same. The trust between father and son, once broken, could never be fully restored. That was the real crime here, and no amount of justice could fix it. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of my restored lodge, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold. The modern furniture was gone, replaced with pieces that actually belonged in a mountain home. Martha's photographs once again graced the walls. The kitchen smelled of coffee and bacon, not the sterile cleaner Stephanie had preferred. The trials had been swift and decisive. Marcus got 12 years federal time for the financial crimes, plus the mortgage fraud. The Bar Association permanently revoked his license. He'd be pushing 70 when he got out, his career destroyed. Stephanie received 15 years, the judge particularly unsympathetic to her history of targeting elderly victims. The bigamy charges added insult to injury. She'd screamed at sentencing that it wasn't fair that she'd been manipulated by Marcus. No one believed her. Eleanor got 8 years for her part in the conspiracy and the theft from Richard. The casino had banned her for life after learning about the fraud. Richard, cleared of criminal involvement, had divorced her immediately and moved to Florida to start over. And Bradley. My son had kept his word. He testified against all of them, detailing every meeting, every plan, every forged document. His cooperation and genuine remorse earned him 2 years probation and 300 hours of community service. The judge mandated therapy and addiction counseling. He'd written me letters from the halfway house where he was staying. I hadn't answered them at first, the wound still too fresh. But Martha wouldn't have wanted me to hold on to anger forever. The sound of a car on the gravel drive pulled me from my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I wasn't worried. The new security system Sarah had recommended included cameras that actually recorded to the cloud and a notification system on my phone. Bradley emerged from an old Honda, a far cry from the Mercedes that had been repossessed. He looked different, thinner, but healthier somehow. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something I hadn't seen in years: humility. "Dad," he said simply, "thank you for agreeing to see me." I'd finally responded to his letters last month, agreeing to one meeting. One chance to see if my son still existed inside the stranger he'd become. "Coffee's fresh," I said. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where he'd learned to do homework, where Martha had taught him to play chess. The silence stretched, but it wasn't hostile. Just careful. "I've been working," he said finally. "Construction crew out of Denver. Turns out I remembered more from helping you than I thought." "Honest work," I observed. "Honest everything now. My sponsor says I have to be. 12-step program for the gambling. Therapy twice a week. It's hard, Dad. Seeing who I really was." "And who are you?" Bradley met my eyes. "A coward. A thief. A disappointment. A man who chose easy lies over hard truth. Someone who betrayed the 2 people who loved him most because a beautiful woman told him what he wanted to hear." The honesty was brutal but necessary. I sipped my coffee, waiting. "I know I can't undo what I did," he continued. "Can't give you back the months of stress, the betrayal, the trust. But I want to try to build something new. Not asking for forgiveness. That's yours to give or not. Just asking for a chance to prove I can be better." "What happened to the gambling debts?" "Paying them off. Slowly, but legally. Sold everything I had left. Took a second job. It'll take 3 years, but I'll clear them. No shortcuts, no schemes. Just work." I studied him. The boy I'd raised was in there, buried under years of bad choices, but fighting to surface. Martha would have seen it immediately. She always saw the best in people. "Your mother's charity event is next month," I said finally. "The scholarship fund for first-generation college students. I could use help setting up." Bradley's eyes widened. "You'd trust me here after everything?" "Trust is earned, son. One day at a time. One choice at a time. You want to start earning it, show up, work. No promises beyond that." "I'll be here," he said quickly. "Whatever you need." We talked for another hour. Not about the past. That wound was still too raw. But about his work, his recovery, small steps towards something that might someday resemble a relationship. When he left, I felt something I hadn't expected: hope. A week later, Detective Ray Hutchinson joined me for our regular poker game, along with James Whitmore and a few other old friends. The lodge rang with laughter and lies about who caught the biggest fish. Heard Bradley's doing well, Ray mentioned casually. My nephew works on his crew. Says he's first one there, last to leave. Taking it one day at a time, I said. Smart. Sarah tells me the restitution's coming in steady too. Insurance covered most of it, but the court's making them pay back every penny they stole. Money was never the point, I said, dealing the next hand. It was about respect, about truth, about not letting them turn me into a victim. James raised his beer. To Cleon Morrison, the wolf who wouldn't be sheep. We toasted and played cards until late, the lodge warm with friendship and Martha's spirit. This was what home meant. Not just walls and a roof, but people who stood by you, who saw your worth beyond your bank account. The charity event was a success. Bradley showed up as promised, worked without complaint, and even shared his story with some of the scholarship recipients. My father built his success with his own hands, he told them. I tried to steal it with lies. Don't be me. Be him. Build something real. Afterward, as we cleaned up, he paused by Martha's photograph. I miss her, Dad. Miss who I was when she was alive. She never gave up on you, I said. Even at the end, she made me promise to look after you. And you did. Even when it meant sending me to jail. Especially then. Sometimes love means letting someone face consequences. She taught me that too. Bradley nodded, understanding in a way he couldn't have before. We worked in companionable silence, father and son not healed, but healing. Later, alone on the deck, I opened Martha's journal, the one I'd found in the boxes they'd shoved in the shed. Her handwriting, still so clear. Cleon's teaching Bradley to frame a wall today. Watching them work together, I see the man our son could become. Strong like his father, but hopefully wiser about the heart. I pray he finds someone who loves him true, not for what he has, but who he is. And if he ever loses his way, I pray Cleon's strength will guide him home. I closed the journal, wiping my eyes. He's finding his way back, Martha. Slowly, but surely. Your boy's finding his way home. The mountains stood eternal witnesses to all our human dramas. The lodge was mine again, filled with memories both bitter and sweet. Justice had been served, but more importantly, redemption remained possible. For Bradley, for me, for the family we might yet rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. In the end, that's what separated us from the predators. Not the ability to bite back when cornered, though that mattered, but the ability to release the bite when the threat was gone, to choose healing over hatred, to build rather than just tear down. The wolf had defended his territory. Now it was time for the builder to do what he did best, create something stronger from the ruins. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I was home. Really, truly home. And that was enough. Looking back now, I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about trust, respect, and the choices we make every day. Sometimes the hardest battles we fight are against the people we love most. But if there's genuine remorse and a willingness to change, redemption is possible. To those of you watching who might be facing betrayal from those you trusted, remember this. You are not weak for trusting. They are weak for betraying that trust. Stand up for yourself. Seek help. Document everything. And never let anyone, family or otherwise, make you feel like less than you are. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to take advantage of you? How did you find the strength to fight back while still keeping your heart open to forgiveness? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their struggles. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, the strongest wolves are those who protect their pack while still showing mercy to the defeated. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and never forget your worth.